Most developers spend half their day recovering from interruptions, not from people, from their own tools. I used to lose 20 minutes every time I switched between a messy terminal and a cluttered IDE. The tools were fighting me, not helping me. The real problem wasn't the code, it was the noise. After years of chasing the next productivity app, I stopped. I stripped everything back. What I landed on is a workflow that feels less like a control panel and more like a quiet room. This isn't a list of tools you must install. It's a framework, a way of looking at your terminal, your editor, your notes, and your attention as parts of one calm system. I'll walk you through the 4 layers that hold it together. The terminal I use as a command center. The editor I treat as a sanctuary. The knowledge system that catches my thoughts. And the focus stack that protects my brain. I'll show you the principles, not just the configs. Terminal as a calm command center. The terminal is where most of our work lives, but it often feels like a shouting match. Colors everywhere, long paths, that blinking cursor that demands a command right now. The first thing I did was turn the volume down. I use a muted color scheme, nothing neon. The prompt shows only the current directory and a simple arrow. 2 lines of context, not 20. That blank space gives my eyes a place to rest. I also stopped using a separate terminal for everything. Instead, I open a single tmux session in the morning and keep all my project panes inside. Switching is instant, and the mental load of which tab is the dev server disappears. The most actionable change was aliases. Instead of typing git checkout, B feature dark mode, I type GCB dark mode. 2 letters for the most common commands. Every alias you create saves a tiny decision. Those tiny decisions add up to a quiet mind. I also mapped the caps lock key to escape. That small tweak made my hands feel lighter. If your terminal feels like an obstacle course, ask yourself, what can I remove? Often the answer is half the colors, half the aliases you don't use, and the blinking cursor. Turn it off. Your eyes will thank you. Editor as a sanctuary. Your editor shouldn't feel like a cockpit. It should feel like a writing desk. I treat mine as a sanctuary, a place where I go to think, not to fiddle with extensions. I used to have a sidebar, a file tree, a mini-map, and a dozen icons competing for attention. Now I press 1 key to toggle everything off. Just the code. Just me and the problem. I work in NeoVim, but the principles apply to VS Code, IntelliJ, or any editor. The first thing I did was remove the minimap. You don't need to see a tiny version of your entire file when you're deep inside a function. It's visual clutter masquerading as orientation. Next, I hid the file explorer, unless I explicitly call it. The code itself becomes the landscape. Key bindings are the other half. Every time you reach for the mouse, you break a small thread of thought. I remapped the most frequent actions, jumping to definition, finding references, opening recent files, to simple, chorded keys. Now my hands rarely leave the home row. It feels less like commanding a machine and more like playing an instrument where the music is the logic you're shaping. Choose a font that's easy on the eyes, like JetBrains Mono or Cascadia Code, and set a line height that gives each line room to breathe. The goal is to reach a state where you forget the editor exists. The tool disappears and only the thinking remains. PKM, without the overhead personal knowledge management, can become its own form of noise. I tried building a second brain, with hierarchies, tags, and plugins, and ended up with a digital garden I never walked through. So I started fresh. My entire PKM system fits in 3 parts: an inbox note, daily notes, and project notes. That's it. When an idea hits while coding, a bug I want to remember, a library to check later, I don't open a fancy template. I hit a hotkey, a small window pops up, and I type the thought into the inbox. No formatting, no categorization, just capture. Once a day, I spend 10 minutes processing that inbox. I move useful nuggets into project pages or daily logs and link related ideas together. This ritual is the only structure I allow. The tool I use is Obsidian, but only because it stays out of my way. I disabled most plugins. No Kanban boards, no daily quote generators, just plain markdown files and backlinks. The insight here is simple. A note that takes 5 seconds to create gets created. A note that requires a template doesn't. Lower the friction until capturing feels like exhaling. Your PKM should be a net that catches thoughts, not a maze that traps them. The focus, stack that protects your mind. All the quiet terminals and serene editors in the world won't help if your environment is pulling at your attention. The final layer of my workflow is what I call the focus stack. A few simple barriers that keep the world at a distance long enough to do deep work. I start with time blocking, but not the rigid kind that schedules every minute. I carve out 1 3-hour block in the morning for hard problems. During that block, I use a simple Pomodoro timer. No loud alarm, just a soft chime. I work for 25 minutes, then stare out the window for 5. The rest period isn't a reward. It's part of the process. The mind needs those quiet pauses to make unexpected connections. My phone stays in another room on grayscale with all notifications off. On my computer, I block distracting sites using a local tool that redirects them to a blank page. There's nothing clever about it. It's just a wall. I also wear noise-canceling headphones playing low-fidelity ocean sounds, the same ones you might be hearing now. The key insight is this. Don't rely on willpower. Design your environment so that focus is the path of least resistance. If you have to resist, you've already lost energy you could have spent on your code. The common thread through each of these layers is calm. A terminal that doesn't yell. An editor that doesn't demand your attention. A note system that catches thoughts without ceremony. A focus stack that builds a gentle fortress around your mind. The workflow isn't about the tools themselves. It's about how those tools let you forget them. When the noise fades, what's left is the quiet satisfaction of thinking clearly. The best code I've ever written was produced not in a frenzy, but in a state of peaceful focus. That state is trainable. Start by turning down the volume on one part of your stack today. See what happens. If this way of working resonated with you, consider subscribing. We release videos every week on building software in a calm, sustainable way.